They are cottages that are set up for military and the spouses of people who've served in the military. And so it's just like a little apartment that's all hers. She pays for it, and they actually have like a cafeteria type of kitchen. It's all included in the price, and so it just kind of simplifies her life a little bit. Now, she is perfectly free to do everything that she was doing before, going to church, going to Dairy Queen for lunch, all of that. As a matter of fact, she's even closer, so it's even easier for her. But yes, the way it is set up is as she needs more care, they can provide more care. So a nurse to check in on her. There's a clinic right there on the facility. So yeah, it wasn't like we were just kind of shipping her off to a home. And I know that my wife was struggling a little bit with that too, feeling bad about it. But we really do feel that it's the best thing for her. And as a matter of fact, um, she agreed to it. So it wasn't like we had to drag her screaming and kicking. But anyway, um, yeah, I'm kind of glad it's done. She's actually going to be easier to visit. Hey, good morning, Miss Match Socks. How are you doing? I'm doing okay. I missed y'all streaming yesterday, but yeah, we're back. We're back to yeah. Good to see you too. So we're back to my drawer project, and I kind of wish I could get this just knocked out and done. But it's just, like I said, been tough to get out here. So before the stream, I did get a little bit more done, and I have a confession to make. I had something go wrong the last time I worked on it. So I'll share that with you, and we're going to see if we can fix it, which I'm pretty confident that we can, and we'll just move on from there. So yeah, hopefully you're seeing some ugliness here. And what happened is, well, you can see up on top here, I got some chatter. I was getting a little bit too aggressive, I think, with the router, and it chattered and took out a little chunk of the pattern right here, as well as my base drawer. But this one ended up going even worse. And actually, what happened on this is the bearing on my patterning bit froze up, literally seized up. And you can see that it started cutting into my pattern because it was no longer spinning. And so I got about to this point and realized something was wrong. You can see I cut a little bit too far here. So, bit of a bummer. The other drawer came out pretty good. It was just this one that I had this issue with. So what I need to do is just kind of recut my pattern a little bit, increase the margins, and change it just a little bit so that it's going to look normal when I go and run the router on it again. Yeah, it's stuff that happens. But this side I did this morning, and it came out pretty good. By the way, the whole reason I'm doing this is to knock some of the weight off of the drawer. And I think we weighed the drawer at like 6.6 pounds. And doing this to the first drawer actually removed 1.2 pounds. So it was significant. Yeah, I think it was worth it. It's just to kind of lighten the whole project up. I do have to cart these boxes around. They are on wheels and whatnot, but if I can design something and then do a little bit of work to it to take some weight out of it, I figure why not? Yes, it is. Yeah, the drawer actually goes, I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, the drawer actually goes into this, which is one of my mobile carts. And you can see on this side, I have it drilled out for mounting the drawer. And I actually was able to find some bolts, but yeah, it goes right inside of there. Well, thank you, Mismatched. It's going to be above all just really useful to me. You know, it really does solve a problem that I had, which is having to unstack everything to open this up from the top. But now, once I put all the internal component pieces back in there, this will actually be screwed down. And you can see that I still have most of the seal. You know, the seal used to go all the way around. So I have everything except for this piece right here. And the thing is, this still overhangs the drawer. So, you know, other than maybe getting some really blasting rain, the box is still waterproof. Everything was attached from the inside, you know, so I didn't pierce through to the plastic on the outside. And yeah, it should still be very nice and waterproof and durable. So let's get that out of the way. And we'll get to routing on the drawer. Okay, that one came out. A little bit crooked there. Wonder how my bearing is doing. Feels okay. We'll continue. Those are the easy ones. They're quick and easy. They're a little bit. Well, I might as well get the big one out of the way. Needs to a slightly different grip here. That's the big one. Takes a little bit. Possible ban evader. Well, I don't know where my mods are. Mismatched socks. Are you still watching? I have a task for you. You now have a sword. Okay, I took care of it. Let's do the next one. Get some material off of there. Swords for everyone. Hey, how you doing, Pringo? Yeah, I mean, you're all my friends that come back and watch me, so I trust you. Just those spammers, you know, trying to get me to sign up for stuff. You suddenly feel more powerful. Nice. As well you should. Wow, that one went a little bit deep in one spot. I must have tilted it a little bit. That's okay. I'm still going to do some sanding in these. A little bit of filling if necessary. Because these drawers are actually going to get painted. I wanted them black from the beginning. They are made out of, you know, relatively nice material, Baltic birch. But the main reason I use that is because A, I had some. B, it's commonly used to build drawers out of. Paint, the best way to hide mistakes. Well, I was never planning on like staining it or anything like that. If so, I could have just not pocketed them out. But even in, you know, commercial drawer applications, you would typically just clear coat this. But no, I wanted it black because part of the project is the troll, that it's an original Milwaukee product. Because a bunch of people have been asking for this particular modification for a while. And yeah, I just want to get it finished as quickly as possible, and painting it is probably the easiest way to do that. But I think I can also get a little bit more durable drawer out of it too. You know, this is for outdoor use, and the other components that I put inside, I sealed with sanding sealer. I will probably put a few coats on there, and the whole point is to try to make it as water resistant as possible. So I think once I sanding sealer this, I can get a nice smooth surface, and once I get a coat of paint on there, it should be a nice seal for the wood. Right into the next one. But yeah, paint is a nice way to hide the mistakes. You're not wrong. So I just used some 23 gauge pins to hold that in place. And so far that technique is working pretty darn well. Leaves a tiny little hole in your piece. But that's going to be very easily filled. Okay. So I'll do a little bit of cleaning up of the lines, but and then I can sand the very bottom of it. And TGB, hey, how are you doing? But yeah, I set up my multi-tool here, my oscillating tool, so that I could sand out the detail. Fortunately, it really only fits in these bigger ones. Might end up having to get another one of these and modifying it. Because I really could use one that was, you know, made for a tighter spot. Yeah, I'll have to see about that. Yeah, that cleans up pretty nice. Like I said, there's one spot that went a little bit deep. But that's the front and the back. And so now I need to modify my pattern so that we can fix this one and then do the other side. And what I may do is, just for the sake of consistency, once I do modify this, I'll go back to my first drawer and we'll redo that one as well. So basically what I need to do is make it a little bit wider. And I'd really prefer to just make it wider enough to kind of cover where it jumped. And it looks like an inch. Inch is going to cover it. And I might want to do this in Sharpie. Because the pencil line does have a tendency to rub off of this melamine surface. And so, just for the sake of aesthetics, we'll balance it out. And it made me a little sad, but not completely, because, well, widening this out just means that I'm going to lose even more material off of my drawer, and it will become even lighter. Okay, so the middle one's a little bit more mangled up right here. And centering it up, I'm at like 9 3/4. That'd be 1, 2, 3, 4.5 plus 3/8 would be my center. That can't be right. Oh, it was 11 3/4 to the center. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 plus 3/8. Ah, that's still the center. And going off the center, I could cut this down to you see, about 7/8 of an inch. Okay. So just a little wider there. And then it's chewed up a little bit right here. I can probably leave the top right where it is, but the bottom I'm going to have to take it down to, it looks like 9/16. That definitely covers it. Ooh, almost didn't right there. Okay. So we did this with the jigsaw last time. I don't see any reason not to do that again. And was it this jigsaw? No, I think it was the barrel grip. This one right here has a nice fine blade to it. And this is a little sketchy. So my coworker was telling me, Fuji, I'm a little sketchy should be the name of the shop. Yeah. Or how about a lot sketchy? How are you doing, man? So a coworker was telling me that he knew somebody that had found a jigsaw blade that had teeth on both sides. So when you're doing cutouts like this, you can go forward. You know, you usually have a starter hold, and then you go forward, but you can actually run it backwards too. And that seemed kind of intriguing. Like it might save you a lot of time. I don't know anything about them, whether they're good quality or not. But for work, if it saves some time, I could see that being pretty useful. I don't know. It just sounds like it would be better if I used, you know, a British term like dodgy. The dodgy shop. Did you miss me yesterday, Boogie? Sorry I couldn't be here. There's only so much of me to go around, you know? And when you're a carpenter in the family, all the carpentry by default falls on you. did absolutely nothing from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. in my honor. Is that what you're saying? I have the same experience of being the computer guy. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I work on all our computers. I'm not as much of an expert as you are, but I can pick a lot. I need a little more here. And you know, I'm not complaining. I was actually glad that I could help out the family. And I got a pretty sweet pad out of the deal too. Yeah, it's a resistol hat. Of course, living in a rural area, you get to know all the popular brands, and resistol is definitely one of them. I think it's like being a Chevy guy or a Ford guy or a Dodge guy, GMC, what have you. But certain brands of hats, people just stick with them. And I do have a Stetson. You know, I'm getting pretty warm. It's pretty nice in here today. Definitely has been on a warming trend. But did you see where I screwed up there, Fuji? Yeah, that's what we're reworking the pattern to fix. Pattern is getting pretty thin and fragile. Finish this one up. I'm trying to fix my third printer ATM. Wow. Are you sure ass to mouth is going to work for fixing a printer? Sorry, we have a we have a stray cat that we're calling ATM because the first cat that showed up, we called him the mayor because that's the sound he makes. Mayor, mayor, mayor. And so when another cat showed up, we named him the assistant town manager, or ATM for short. Of course, when I mentioned this to my coworkers, they said, "You mean the cat out the mouth?" You know, construction workers. The third printer, she likes that. I gotcha. Or of a printer. Okay. I believe that's all corrected. So let's just give it a quick once over, see if it needs any cleanup. It looks pretty good. I think that'll do. Okay. So just getting it lined up with where I aligned it before. I think that'll do right there. Oh no! Sorry, that was a whole container of sanding drums. Bummer. Just sitting there minding its own business. I got too close and it leaped out at me. Okay, you stay there. Okay. So yeah, that should looks like that's going to correct my issue that I had before. But I think I'll start with this one right here. Very good. Looks like I went a little bit deeper before. Sure how that happened. See how that came out. And I'd say it cleaned it up pretty good. Ooh, right down there. Well, now, there's still a little bit of a bobble right down here, but I think I may try to fix that in another way. Oh, I see. Yeah, it slipped down below below my pattern. Ooh, I'd hate to thin this out even more. A minute. Yeah, like I said, I may just try to do that a little bit more conventionally. Okay. Pull all the pins out of here. By conventionally, I mean some putty. As I said, I'm going to paint it. So I don't mind using a little bit of filler on it. Believe it or not, this is not what I consider a fine woodworking project. Okay, and I need to get my dimension on this one. I believe at the top here it was, yeah, it has a few little bobbles in it. I'm wondering if I should just correct that by shifting it down a little bit. I could do that. Then I'd have to do that on all of them. False advertising. Or maybe I just run with it. I don't know where my shorter metal ruler got to. But yeah, that was how I lined out the last one. Just like that. Well, about like that. Hopefully I still have pins in here. Yep. Check your pants. At least it rule. You dirty, dirty man. something I haven't been doing on this. You don't call it El Presidente for no reason. Absolutely. I've been clamping this down so it can move a little bit. Just get a clamp on there and oh no. I don't think it caused any damage, but I was getting too aggressive there. Okay, maybe it did jump a little bit. Easy there, fella. Yeah, put a little notch in it right there. Just that I'll be able to fix it. Oh, we still have these. Okay, nice. Okay. So yeah, there's my little notch right there where it jumped. We'll do a little bit of tune-up work to that. Go. I mean, the drawer feels noticeably lighter after doing this work to it. It had a kind of a heft to it before, but now it feels almost feathery in comparison. I think I am going to appreciate the difference. Okay, so these just need a little bit of cleanup. Pins seem to be holding out so far. Okay. So this is just a little cleanup cut here. And again, chewed it up just a little bit. Might have needed to chosen a little bit more durable, maybe even a little bit thicker pattern material. This should be the last of it right here. And there went the pins. Okay. Think I know where to find some more. Do I? Sorry, have to do a little bit of searching here. And I found some pins. They don't have to be very long. They're only going through 1/4 inch material. Tool O timed out. Fuck you, printer. Are you talking about a... Well, so far I've mostly used pattern bits. Yeah, I'm using the pattern bits, and unless your pattern bit is made out of fairly tough material, if the bearing is starting to seize, then it can cut through that material too. It's all right. Like I said, I just want to get the material removed, and I'll fill it in a little bit if I need to. What I was going to ask you is, are these 3D printers or just regular paper printers? Ah, your 3D printer. Gotcha. Well, you know, the thing about machinery is, well, it's like my computer can beat me at chess, but it can't hold a candle to me in kickboxing. I think I might throw those away. They're pretty worked. those patterns. But all in all, not too bad on that cleanup run. May even be able to do a little bit of that. Get things nice and straight. All in all, looking pretty darn good. This is the back of the drawer. So I can do a little bit more rounding over here. Including the top edges. I like to take the sharp edge off of this. Get rid of that little splinter there. And may as well do the bottom. Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty happy with that. Whew. Okay, well, this is obviously going to take a bit more work. I was trying to figure out a way to round this edge over as well, but there isn't a bit available that I'm aware of that is shallow enough to fit down inside of here and then round that over. But that's not to say that I can't just round it over by hand, you know? It'll be a lot of handwork, but as I said, I'm only trying to get it prepared for paint. So my main focus was actually the ends. That's why I decided to redo them again. And if you're wondering why you're seeing red inside of here, it's because my depth actually hit right in between the plies. So that's the glue that's holding the plywood together. And most places it exposed a little bit of it. Now, back in the day, I would say that it would probably be formaldehyde resin. Because I've worked with formaldehyde resin building stair rails and things like that. Yeah, a smaller detail sander would be nice. See what I have, if I have any putty. Don't know that I do. I usually like the solvent-based putties. They have a little bit of body to them. And you can work them pretty well with a putty knife. If I have any, it might be in my trim bag. Well, I will probably have to pick some of that up. That's okay. Okay, I'm done with you for a while. I need to put everything on my bench to get back together again. But yeah, I think this is as far as I'm going to take this project today. I really wanted to get done with the routing because it has made quite a mess in here. And I want to get that all cleaned up for doing some bicycle work. But, you know, all in all, I'm pretty happy with how all of these came out. This one definitely needs some work inside of here. But if I can get that putty, that will actually be fairly easy to fill in and sand out. We'll do a little bit to it. And I'd need a pretty darn small detail sander to get into there, so that's probably just going to have to be done by hand. But yeah, without some filler to build it up a little bit, I think I'm just going to stop there. I can do a little bit more palm sanding on this So I have some tool stuff to share with you. Let me just finish this up really quick and I'll get that stuff out. And I may have to shut down a little bit early today. But I had something come in that I found kind of interesting. And that is this right here. So with my mobile tool setup, one of my major goals is to try to have all the capability of dealing with situations when I'm on the road, but also minimizing the number of tools without having to compromise too much. And I had been looking for a torque wrench for quite some time. I have one that kind of covers the lower range of torque values. Anything that would be driven by, say, a quarter-inch drive ratchet. But I needed something for the larger sizes, like 3/8 to a half. And you're kind of ranging into automotive territory with those torque values. So this is definitely aimed at automotive, but this is a little Nico torque adapter. And it even has a little certificate of inspection here. The error percentage at 40, 120, and 200 Newton meters, which is what bicycle values are typically measured in. So this will go up to 200 Newton meters. And the reading was within 0.25%, 0.17%, and 0.20%. So this, and I have seen people purchase this as a way to check the calibration of their torque wrenches. So you can actually attach a torque wrench to this and then put it onto a bolt and just see how closely it matches. And the thing is, the way I feel about it, it's like the expression about a man with two watches, never knowing exactly what time it is. You know, if you compared one torque wrench to another, how do you know which one is off? To what percentage are the lies to? Yes. So, so you can power it on. You select your unit, kilogram, centimeter, kilogram, meter, pound, inch, or foot inch, foot pound, and Newton meter. And then there's you can set a target torque value, how to set peak and trace. So I'll definitely have to hang on to these. But yeah, I was just impressed with like how compact it was. You know, you add this to another wrench, and this is a 1/2 inch drive, but it was the one that was in the same range that I was looking for. And I do have adapters, so that's not really an issue. So I have an adapter here, and I actually ordered some new ones because I wanted one to stay with this unit. But yeah, pop a 3/8 adapter there. Of course, you need the opposite adapter. You need a 1/2 inch to 3/8 adapter. And that I'm not seeing offhand. I know I have one. Got one there, but I'm wondering if I have one all by itself. Not in the set. I have a lot of just random stuff here in the shop. Just waiting to get knocked over. Oh, look, and there's some wood putty, huh? Well, that is not it. I guess I don't have one loose. Probably good that I ordered one. So yeah, you can see I just, plug my 3/8 into there, and I'll have to have the opposite adapter. The unit does spin, and that was actually one of the complaints about this, is that the buttons stick out, and there's actually what they call a death mode, is what somebody described is you can reset it to default values. Actually, I think it just wipes it. And I think if you hit 2 buttons at the same time, yeah, you have to pull the little battery plastic off there, and it seems like maybe the battery's dead. Well, that's entirely possible. Who knows how long this has been on the shelf? Do not press mem and power together. This system will enter into calibration mode. But it doesn't tell you how to recover from that. So it's not turning on, so let's open it up and pop a new battery in there. And it does say to remove the battery if stored for a long period of time, so yeah, you got to send it in. Probably so. So it's a CR2032. That's a fairly common battery to run into. And fortunately, I have spares. I bought a couple of cards of these. Yeah, and that was one of the really, really angry reviews. Is the guy said that basically you can. Uh-oh, it's not powering on. You have to hold it. That is not working. It says hand use only. Well, not a very good endorsement for this, right? It's not working. Probably going to have to send it back. Make sure the battery's in the right way, because I guess that could be an issue. Pretty dang sure that's the way it goes in. It says positive. Maybe it is upside down. Link Hunter, YOLO. How you doing, man? Let's try it the other way. There it goes. Cool. It does work. And yeah, I got my scale out here because I was wondering how much this weighed. It weighs 0.39 pounds or 179 grams. You're looking at a used scooter. Cool. Or 6.31 ounces. Now that is definitely lighter than a torque wrench. I mean, a torque wrench would be more along those lines, and then we're talking like a pound. It's called a PGO Hot 50. So does that mean it's a 50 cc? That's a very common common displacement for a scooter. Here, um, a lot of them are at 49 cc's because apparently, whoops. Okay, got to turn it off. It was beeping at me. It's one of the popular brands we have here, so it is very easy to get spare parts for them. Very cool. So yeah, I'm definitely going to have to be careful with this, not to press those two buttons at the same time. I wonder if something could be done about that. You know, like since you're not supposed to touch those at the same time, what if you built up like a little ring around the buttons so that you didn't accidentally push them? That could be a fun project. Me and my dad were going out to look at it tomorrow. So yeah, I might have to look into doing that. You know, maybe even just make a whole cover and um, cut out for the buttons, but do kind of an overlay piece just to keep you from accidentally pressing those buttons. But yeah, nice little compact unit, lightweight. Probably a whole lot better than carrying around a full torque wrench. And here's the thing, I'm only going to be using this occasionally. Quite honestly, it's going to be very rare that I would ever need this thing, but I wanted to be complete with my toolkit. So carburetor needed to be cleaned and new electricity, so a battery. Gotcha. Yeah, I had a couple of Honda Sprees that were 49 cc's, and at that displacement, they don't go very fast. As a matter of fact, that was a very common moped displacement because back in the 80s, you've actually had one before, 10 years ago. Cool. Yeah, back in the 80s, uh, uh, the laws were kind of vague as far as mopeds. And you could actually ride a moped even if you didn't have a driver's license. And there was actually kind of a craze going on over mopeds at that time. And they had people that were buying whole fleets of them and renting them out to people. And of course, the kids loved them because they didn't have to have a license to ride one. And, a lot of people would ride them to school and stuff like that. And then they tightened up on all the laws. But it was that 49cc cutoff. Anything beyond that was considered a motorcycle, and you actually had to get a motorcycle license to drive one. And I'm not sure how the laws are now, other than now in a lot of states, including this one, Colorado, you're required to have a driver's license before you can ride a moped. You don't need a motorcycle endorsement, but you do need a driver's license. And there's just not a whole lot of people that are kind of taking advantage of that anymore. I'm pretty sure you can still buy mopeds and scooters that are low displacement. Of course, a scooter, the difference there is it doesn't have pedals. The moped actually had pedals on it. And it was kind of necessary because with such a low displacement and such low horsepower, if you had hills to get up, you actually had to pedal them along with that motor to get it up a steep incline. And it did help, but yeah, once upon a time, I had a moped kind of cross my path. Did exactly what you were talking about, where needed to clean out the carburetor. Had old gas in there that was all turned into lacquer, and got all that done. And I brought it to Moab with me when we were doing support for the 24 hours of Moab. Well, because it had a light on it, the kids just had a blast riding it all over the place. We had them course marshaling, and in other words, we gave them radios, and they would tell us when a rider was coming in, so we could get ready, make sure the next rider was in the staging area, so they could hand over the baton, because the race was a baton relay. In any case, yeah, they had a blast on it, and even though that thing got, I don't know, 80, 100 miles to the gallon, they ran it out of gas like 3 or 4 times. They just rode the crap out of it. And, you know, it actually had shocks and stuff on it, so it handled the terrain there as long as you weren't going too fast or trying to jump it. But a lot of fun. I kind of wish I had one again. That would be a fun project. Kind of wondering if there's any on Marketplace. No, just motorcycles. There's a scooter, a 2012 Buddy Buddy, I guess, but they want 2 grand for it. Maybe I just need to make my radius bigger. No, there's one in Colorado Springs, one in Phoenix. They're scooters. They aren't moped. Not really seeing anything. And some people just don't know what a moped is. A moped means a ped. You pedal it. Yep, again, this is a scooter, not a moped. They want $250 for it, but that seems a bit high. Well, maybe someday I will come across one. Also possible to um, add a motor to a bicycle, but these days I would much rather add an electric motor to a bike. I have done some checking into this. Ooh, wow, that is actually kind of cool. This is a Batavis moped that has a trike kit. Actually, no, it's a 4-wheel model. Okay, so they're asking 1150 for both. Wow, those would be fun. And this is in Kansas. Let me see. Let me see if I can share this. Okay, tell me if you can read this. And Ravroid, hey, how are you doing? But yeah, check this out. You got to go through the pictures, but um, there's like a 4-wheel model that has like baskets added onto it. Man, that would be a cool little grocery getter. And I'll bet if you got both of them running, you could sell one and pay for both of them. But man, that might be kind of cool to have a little moped with baskets on it. There's got to be some enthusiasts out there too, where you could get parts for it. But I'd swear that some of those are bicycle parts. Looks like similar to a Puch Max. Yeah, that would be fun. I don't know if I'd want to drive all the way to Kansas for a moped, but yeah, if I did buy them, I'd want to buy both of them. All right, folks. So I'm going to wrap up here. Like I said, a little bit early. I need to get my truing stand here loaded up. Today, the class we're teaching is how to true a wheel, and so I need to get some things printed up. But I'm glad to get to that point with the drawers. I'll continue to clean them up. Like I said, I found some putty. I'll have to see if it's still viable. Didn't check that. Where'd I put that putty? There it is. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever used this stuff. Oh, well, I wasn't leaving right now. I was just saying I'm going to wrap it up early. How you doing, Rooster? No, I was kind of curious about this putty. But yeah, I have this. I have this truing stand, which it is one that I bought because I wanted to step up my tool game, and I have an old one that is somewhat of an antique, and I wanted to get that down, but I figured, well, maybe I should just grab it so you can take a look at it. Some of you might have seen this already. But I know it's been a while since I've taken it down. And this one right here is my VAR. This one was given to me by a friend. And I did a little bit of research on it. I actually built the base custom. It's meant to be bolted to a bench. And at some point I might do that. Because this is actually very, very flexible as far as what size wheels you can put in here, and it has some interesting features like this plate right here, for instance. This is for measuring your runout on your rim, and I really like the fact that it was aluminum because it makes a loud scraping noise. So this one actually works really well. And my friend, he said I think he bought it in the 60s, and the design for this is like 100 years old. So this truing stand has looked like this for like 100 years. So I found a couple more things too. I was going to share that with you. I ordered two more tools that use DeWalt batteries, and I have to admit I have a bit of a fetish for inflation tools, and it started with Um, one made by Craftsman that I used for a long time. And I think I even wore one of these out. But with an adapter, it was a 19.2 volt Craftsman. And with an adapter, I was able to run a DeWalt battery on there. And no, it's not that kind of pump. But yeah, got by with this for a long time. But it was starting to get a little bit tired, and I thought, you know, I've grown so dependent on using that cordless inflator that I might want to think about getting another one. And so I went on searches on several occasions just to see if I could find a better quality one, you know, one that was going to last. And what I ended up buying was, well, like one of the cheapest ones. It was this Heart, and I upgraded the hose and everything on there. Found somebody who 3D prints an adapter for the Heart batteries so that you can plug a DeWalt battery into it. Oh, that one I think is dead. Or the tool is dead. Hang on a second. Grab a known charged battery here. Uh-oh. I didn't even check this, but yeah, this one's not making contact or something. There it goes. And you know, I was planning on upgrading this one with a new hose and chuck, but yeah, I actually had my old one stolen. So this one is actually a replacement for the one that was stolen out of my vehicle. They also stole a bunch of tools, a whole set of DeWalt sockets and ratchet